So ladies and gentlemen, let's now discover the intersection of the cutting-edge technology and the global progress at NASTEC 2023. Let's gain some insights into how the technology is shaping a more sustainable and progressive world for all. Let me extend my heartfelt welcome to Mr. Jeyandran Venugopal, the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Flipkart. Previously, he was also the CPTO of Myntra. Amongst many great achievements, Mr. Jeyandran Venugopal is also the founder and CEO of a digital healthcare startup that is eClinic 24/7, and he has built a product that won industry accolades, including the NASCOM Emerge 50 Awards. So let us put a warm applause. Let us put together our hands and welcome Mr. Jeyandran Venugopal.
Thank you. Am I audible? Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for the kind words of introduction and the welcome. So, of course, today we are going to hear about a lot of exciting topics, and we'll get into details of things like Gen AI, space tech, robotics, and many, many more things, like quantum computing and so on. So, but for the opening keynote, I thought that let's just step back a little bit and think about the arc of technological innovation in human progress, and what does it mean for us as professionals, technology entrepreneurs, even educators if there are academicians here, etc. Right? In terms of how we need to transform ourselves in the face of what we are seeing happening around us. And to understand that, to realize what the pace of technological innovation means, I think we need to expand our thinking to something that we would, even in a decade back or 2 decades back, would have considered as some sort of a utopian vision or science fiction rather. So with that, I'll start with these provocative statements, right? So if someone were to tell you a story where there is free, unlimited, reliable, and clean energy for the whole world, and a truly global workforce where everyone is able to maximize their potential with no exceptions. It doesn't matter which country you were born into, which circumstances, which economic sector you belong to, or anything, right? So there is no divide. You are able to maximize your potential, right? Every global citizen maximizes their potential. And a new world order, so to speak, where truly the concept of boundaries actually become fuzzy. Global demand is met by global supply of talent, services, products from anywhere and everywhere. And even governance structures and models would be very different from what we are experiencing, right? So for a very, very long number of years, we have had very few governance models anywhere you look in the world, right? So all of these statements would look to all of us like this is some sort of a utopian vision, right? This is probably from some science fiction movie or a book, right? So let's see, is that the case, or are there signs to say that the pace of technological innovation is making some of these things more and more a possibility? Okay, so we'll spend a bunch of time in this particular illustration. As they say, lot of people have said this, even somebody as illustrious as Albert Einstein made that statement, right? That if you want to create the future, you need to understand your past. So let's try to understand our past and what that past indicates, what is in the future for us. In the early 1900s onwards, thinkers, philosophers of science have speculated about how technological evolution is going to reshape human society. It started with somebody like John von Neumann, and then there were people like Hans Moravec, Werner Vinge, and others, right? And one of the most famous proponents now of this theory of singularity is Ray Kurzweil. I don't know how many of you have read his books. The one notable book that I would definitely suggest, like anybody who's interested in this topic, read is The Age of Spiritual Machines. This is a book he wrote in the late 1990s, right? So, where he famously predicted that we will reach this concept of technological singularity. And what does this mean? Let's try to understand that, right? And then let's contextualize it to the present and see at this moment, as a technology workforce, as entrepreneurs, what does it mean for us? It's not about only a pie in the sky thinking, but what does it mean for us, right? So this graph demonstrates something very simple and very fundamental, right? So the pace of new technological innovation has been accelerating. It is, in effect, an exponential curve. In fact, all of the people that I talked about, people like Moravec, Werner Vinci, and Ray Kurzweil more recently, they talk about this thing which has been termed loosely as the law of accelerating technological innovation. It's not so much a physical law. You can think of it as an empirical law or a statement based on observations only. And it is borne out by looking at how technological innovation has progressed. So let's say if there were a time machine that was there and somebody who was in, let's say, the year 3000 BC got transported to the year, let's say, 1000 BC, 2000 years would have passed. Would the person have observed something fundamentally different that they would think that they have woken up in a dream? Like they would see society change around them, but would it change so much that it will look like this is some sort of an alien world? No, right? So the amount of time that has to pass before this hypothetical time traveler goes into some sort of a shock, seeing the new world that he or she is in, that time window is actually reducing. So all of us have even experienced this, right? So those of us who are in the mid to late 40s will relate to this. I mean, when I talk to my children who are teenagers, right? They can't even fathom, like, how could you have lived in a world without cell phones? Like, how did you even get from place to place without the aid of like maps and navigation and stuff, right? Like, they just can't imagine how even life was possible in such a world. Like, to them, it is like it was a stone age that you were in, and this was not too long back. It was only, we're talking about 30 years back, right? So, I think similarly, in let's say the 1200s, 1300s, 1400s, that time period before which that hypothetical time traveler will face a shock, meaning that things have changed so much in society, would be maybe even so, maybe a few hundred years. But now that is changing. I mean, 30 years back, if somebody told anyone that you could talk at the push of a finger to anyone around the globe with no delays, you could actually communicate using multimodal, like voice, images, videos, text, whatever you need, instantly. The evolution of things like, I mean, even about 10 years back, there used to be discussions about things like Turing test, and would ever a machine beat a Turing test? Just in the last 1 year, I think people have stopped talking about the Turing test, ever since Gen AI and ChatGPT came around, right? So, I think, and why do we not see it for what it is, right? So one of the characteristics of exponential curves is this, right? In the near locality where you are in, even an exponential curve looks linear, right? Because that is I mean, it's a mathematical phenomena, right? Basically, you could think of that exponential curve in your locality as linear, maybe with a sharp slope up, but still you may think that you're just sitting on a linear curve if you didn't see the full arc. So all of us therefore underestimate what is going to happen 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, right? Because we think that, okay, it's a linear process, but that is not the case. It is an exponential process. It is a compounding process. And the law of accelerating innovation, law of accelerating technological innovation actually says that any sort of evolutionary system actually goes into exponential and in fact a super exponential process, and that is very much applicable for technology as well. When I say evolutionary systems, this does not mean only Darwinian evolution and biological organic evolution, right? the word evolution here is, what it means is something that builds on what has already come and then improves it further. That is the evolutionary process. Of course, the Darwinian evolution also does that through the mechanisms we all know of, but it is true for many other processes, including technological processes. Okay, so these are some of the things, several emerging technologies, right, are going to bring about very, very pivotal transformations in even the structure of society, how global workforces function. I've just said Gen AI for star because you can't even pin it down to like 1 or 2 or 3 domains, right? It's literally going to impact any possible thing you can think of. Think of, like we talked about earlier, maximizing the potential of every human, right? Today, if you look at our traditional education systems, they are not personalized, they're not adaptive, right? But with the advent of Gen AI, we can provide to every child, every learner, and of course, lifelong learning, right? We should not say only child when we talk about learning. All of us should become lifelong learners, right? Everybody has a customized, self-paced, adaptive, and expansive way of learning new things, keeping our brains plastic and building new skills. And that's all possible now, right? And this is one of the key levers that is going to maximize potential. And the effect this would have on GDP, for example, the Indian government thinks, for example, that there is a phenomenon in economics, people call it the total factor of productivity, right? So what that means is, like, after accounting for all the changes in your inputs, how much is your output as measured by GDP changing, and after factoring out input changes. And we think that something like Gen AI will actually make a measurable and meaningful difference to total factor of productivity and play an important role in elevating quality of life for the nation. Blockchain. Today we don't hear too much about it. It's an unfortunate fact that blockchain and cryptocurrencies get embroiled in like meme coins and so on and so forth, and people don't think of blockchain as much today as a transformative technology perhaps, but it is a very fundamental breakthrough which allows what is called as distributed trust, right, and decentralization. And some of the very, very fundamental things that have always remained centralized, governance models through, let's say, governments, it could now have the potential of being decentralized. In fact, some countries which are pioneering countries, which are taking the leap, Estonia is a very small country. You can look it up. It's probably smaller than many of the cities that are in India, but they've completely moved to a governance model based on blockchain. All of their national records are on a publicly verifiable blockchain ledger, and they estimate that just this move of digitizing everything through blockchain has enabled 2% growth in their GDP. Imagine 2% growth in our nation's GDP. What would it mean for us as a country, right? It's just going to completely transform the lives of billion plus people in the country. Genomics, bioinformatics, technologies like CRISPR, gene editing, personalized medicine and therapy coming out of this. And of course, quantum computing, we are going to hear more about it in future sessions. Limitless possibilities, things that could not be solved through traditional computers, even if you gave it the entire lifetime of the universe, are now going to be solvable using quantum computing. Several companies have made breakthroughs. We already have functioning quantum computers. Now it's only a matter of scaling it up, and it's no longer the realm of fiction at all, right? It's very much commercialized, productized technology. And fusion tech, for example, there have been breakthroughs in fusion. A lot of you would have seen some news articles about it in the recent past. Now people truly believe that this is something several countries have been working on for decades. But now it looks like within about 10 years, 20 years, this vision is quite possible. Imagine that, right? Limitless, clean, reliable, and almost free energy for every global citizen. What kind of breakthroughs are possible with these technologies? What is, like, the only limit is our own imagination. If you put all of these together, what is possible is basically unbounded, limitless. So what does this mean for us, right? So earlier, in earlier eras, entrenched businesses and incumbents always had a huge advantage. new insurgent companies, new breakthrough companies always had that bit of trouble that they had to go through before they can disrupt existing industries, existing models. But with all these technologies at your fingertips, that is no longer the case. In fact, there are people who are predicting that within the next 5 to 10 years, we will see at least one or two one-person companies which will become unicorns. Imagine that, right? Like we were all amazed when, let's say, WhatsApp or Insta or others, which had very small number of employees, became acquired and they were unicorn companies. But imagine one-person companies becoming unicorns, right? So what does that mean, right? It's about your own capacity for rethinking models and innovation that is going to actually transform industries. A single individual can transform societal structures, right? That was never possible. Continuous learning is now an imperative. I think the pace of change is so much that it is no longer possible for people to acquire skills during the first few years of your life and then stop there and then reap the rewards of it over a long 40-year-old career. Every domain is going to transform so much with this accelerating technological innovation that it's imperative for all of us to become continuous learners. And the last point I would leave you with is this, right? So with, as they say, I can't ever resist not quoting a Batman movie. With great power comes great responsibility. So technology leaders are, such as us have to always be mindful of how are we deploying this technology. Are we thinking about fairness, about ethical use of these technologies, right? Because these tools are so powerful that if deployed in malicious ways, they can cause widespread damage, right? So there are a lot of concerns about how cybersecurity landscape is going to change with the advent of Gen AI, right? As an example, right? And this is true for like even collaborative robotics, autonomous drones, etc. All of us know what kind of malicious possibilities exist, right? So as society and technology leaders, we have a very critical role to play to ensure that we use technology responsibly and work towards bridging inequality in the world rather than adding to it. That should be the prime motive for all of us in whatever we are working on. With that, I will stop. I don't know if I have overrun my time and if we can take any questions, but I'll stop there and open it up. No questions? Did I put everybody to sleep? I thought it was the first session in the morning. Yeah. So I think virtual reality and augmented reality, I mean, of course, there are lots of technology I didn't speak about, right? It's a very, very, very small slot that I had to speak in. Like there is, even in AI, there is neuromorphic computing, merging of symbolic UI with neural computing. Causal AI is another big emerging trend. So there are lots of technologies we didn't talk about, not to talk about like space tech and others, right? So coming to AR, VR, I do think one of the elements of maximizing global workforce potential and kind of making national borders a bit blurry and satisfying global demand from anywhere is the ability of like virtual mobility of workforce, right? So even in that particular use case, I do think that in years to come, we will have very cheap but highly immersive telepresence technologies using VR, AR, including haptics and all of that. And that's going to be another big fundamental driver of change. So today, for example, think about why even urban conglomerations exist, right? Like, so we all want to live in clean spaces, not congested spaces with air, trees around us and so on. But why do we all congregate in urban jungles, right? Because jobs are only there, and jobs, you want to have productive economic jobs today, you need to live in the city, right? But imagine a world where you can truly work for anyone around the globe using immersive technologies, do whatever you want to do without constraints of physical space, right? So that is another big fundamental change, and how will it change social structures, society as a whole, and urban landscapes and all of that is something that we all have to see, right? So, and that is one element, but of course AR/VR has so many uses. I sit on the board of one of the largest cancer care chains in India. Today, their tumor board uses this technology, right? So they use HoloLens, and then they actually, radiological imagery, they render it using HoloLens on the tumor board to be able to visualize in 3D where a particular tumor is, and then collaboratively work on that rendered model to come up with both diagnosis as well as surgical options and treatment plans and so on. And before they go on to the physical patient, what they do is actually 3D print the model for further fine-tuning of the physical processes that they want to do when the patient is actually on the operating room. And then even that patient in the future, this is not, whatever I spoke until now is actually happening. But in the future, even that patient and the operation can actually happen remotely using basically telepresence robots, for example, right? And that's something also happening, right? So clearly, very disruptive technology has fundamentally, just like Gen AI, has fundamental transformative potential across so many different industries. By the way, one of the organizers have to tell me to stop whenever I need to stop taking questions. Otherwise, I'll keep going. So please don't think you'll be rude to stop me. Yeah. Any questions from anyone else? Or we are done? Okay. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, especially for raising the point on the ethical usage of the technology. Kindly stay back and accept a token of love and appreciation from our side. May I request Ms. Kritika to kindly hand over a token of love and appreciation from the NASCOM. Thank you, sir. Kindly descend back to your seats. Thank you, ma'am.